Hi friends, once again I warmly welcome you all in my YouTube channel Study Point Dil Se. Once again I am here with you with part 2 of An Apology for Poetry. There we have discussed the different aspects of this particular treatise. As I have already told you that this particular treatise was wrote in response to the Stephen Gossin's School of Abuses. So here we are going to discuss the next topic, or we can say next unit of this particular treatise, that is poetry as a superior to history and philosophy. Here we are going to learn how the poetry is superior to the history and philosophy. And once again I would like to tell you that here we will discuss only important points which can be useful for our exam point of view. So let's move ahead towards our point. So dear friends, as you can see here, the underlined words: in the promotion of virtue, both philosophy and history plays their individual parts. Philosophy deals with its theoretical aspects and teaches virtue by percept, whereas history teaches practical. So, dear friends, here Sidney talks about the philosophy and history. He said philosophy deals with theoretical aspects and teaches virtue, while precept, whereas history teaches practical virtues. He means to say, as we all are well aware, that philosophy is nothing but to inculcate the moral values, and it is merely focused on theoretical aspects. Whatever the theories are there, only on which philosophy talks about. If we talk about the history, it's only talk about the practical virtues, by which drawing concrete examples from life. As you know, we have studied about the subjects like philosophy and history. We find out in philosophy is nothing but a way of meditation, and in which only theoretical knowledge will be provided here. And another one, that is history, we know that we learn from the past experiences of those people, society, and other essential things, incidents, like by which we can understand, by which we can have an experience on the basis of previous knowledge. But the thing is there, we cannot made ensure that whether whatever the things were presented before us, they were correct or not. But whatever we are studying, whatever we are reading in history, we just believe on that. So this is the mere function of philosophy. So philosophy gives us only practical, philosophy just gives us a theoretical aspects knowledge, and while history gives us a practical knowledge, which is drawing from the examples of life. But poetry combines both precepts and practical knowledge. If we talk about poetry, then poetry only tells us about both the things, whether it's a theoretical aspects or whether it's a practical aspects. Both the aspects you can find only in one subject, that is philosophy, that is poetry. So in simple words, we can say here once again Sidney is trying his level best to prove the universality, to prove the importance of poetry on these given two subjects, philosophy and history. So now let's move ahead. So philosophy, being based on abstraction, cannot properly guide the youth. As we know that philosophy is just based on meditation, so according to Sidney, philosophy cannot guide youth. On the other hand, if we talk about historian, is tied to the empirical facts. As I have earlier told you that historian only believe, only their knowledge is based on. So friends, history only gives us empirical facts. So as he draw the examples, no necessary consequences, poetry gives perfect picture of virtue, which are far more effective than the mere definition of philosophy. Means in all the way, in whole paragraph we will find out here that Sidney is trying his level best to prove the power of poetry upon history and philosophy. And he further says it also gives an imagery examples which were more instructive than the real examples of history. As we know that poetry is the faculty by which we can use our imagination in all the aspects, and through our imagination we can see those things which are invisible to our senses. So he proved here that poetry has a capacity to lead any persons to far from this particular world, physical world, and they can create their own world which will be so much sophisticated, so much beautiful than this particular word. So here he said it also gives an imagery example which are more instructive than the real examples of history. Why history? We can understand only those examples which already has been given there. But if we are going in the lap of poetry, there we can find out very instructive by having a meditation, by bringing out the imagination, by opening the birds of our minds, and we can draw those imagination which are so far behind. We can get so much knowledge by the poetry. So the reward of virtue and punishment of vice is more clearly shown in poetry than in history. As friends, you have studied in so many poems and so many, a place you have also studied. There it has been shown poetry is the way where you can find that vices are punished and where virtues are rewarded. So all these things which can only find out in poetry in comparison of history. So he said poetry is superior to philosophy in the sense and that it has the power to move and achieve more virtuous action. It presents moralization in a very attractive form, and things which in themselves are horrible as cruel battles and natural monster are made pleasant in a poetic imitation. For example, one more thing here he would like to give his argument. Suppose we are studying history, so there we will find out a lot of war, annexation, and so many monsters stories are there and crude battles are there. So these things, whenever we are reading history, we will not find out pleasure in those things. We will not have a delight while reading the history in all those things. But whenever we come across the poetry and all those things which are mentioned in poetry, there we will feel so much pleasure. We will delight while reciting, while getting those points and topics while studying poetry. For example, whenever we read out Dr. Foster, there is a mention of War of Trojan. There we find out delight. If we will read out the poetry of Tennyson, where he mentioned the War of Waterloo, Waterloo Massacre, and so many like the Charles Leiter Brigade, there we will also find out the discussion about the Crimean War. But this type of war gives us a little bit something unique understanding. When we read out history, it gives us another sense. There we could not find out our mental pleasure. We could not be able to gain the happiness which we want to get. So in all those ways, he's just giving his argument to prove the superiority of poetry over history and philosophy. So in the end line, he said, the poet is nothing but the monarch of all sciences. Finally, he said that poets are nothing but is the monarch of all sciences. So here in this particular unit, we have to focus on two things. First thing, that Sidney has given his argument to prove the superiority of poetry over the science, over the philosophy, over the history. He said poetry is the only way, is the medium by which we can get both the things, like theological aspects along with the practical values. Only poetry can give us both the things at the same time. If you will read out the philosophy, it will only talk about the theological aspect, which is totally based on abstraction and ideas. And if you are studying history, then it will give us nothing but the examples which are based on anybody's life. And that cannot be true, that can be true or cannot be true. We cannot make it ensure, because all those things which have been given in history, that time we were not there. So whatever we read, we just accept. But if we talk about the poetry, so while sitting on the viewless beings of poesy, we can travel to that world which is so far behind, and from where we can fetch the instructive and very imaginative ideas by which we can understand about the future also. So in this way, Sidney proved that poet is nothing but the monarch of all science. I hope this thing will be clear. Move ahead. The various kinds of poetry. This unit becomes important if the question will be framed. So it is expected the question you will find out from this particular unit. So various kinds of poetry. Here Sydney talks about the different kinds of poetry. So let's understand what kind of poetry he's talking about. So first we will start from the pastoral poetry. So here he discussed about the pastoral poetry, elegiac poetry, satiric poetry. So first we will start with pastoral poetry. So pastoral poetry treats of the beauty of the simple life and sometime of the miseries of the common people under lots and novels. So as we have seen in our poetry, that there are different types of forms of poetries are there. So pastoral is one of them. He said pastoral poetry is nothing but it tells about the beauty of a simple life and miseries of the common people. And if we will go more deeply, then in pastoral, it always gives us picture to the rural areas in which the characters are presented as a shepherd. So now let's move ahead towards elegiac poetry. So elegiac poetry deals with the weakness of mankind and wretchedness of the world. So elegiac poetry, according to him, he said that elegiac poetry deals with weakness of mankind and its wretchedness of the world. So according to Sydney, elegiac poetry is nothing but it deals with the weakness of mankind and wretchedness of the world. Whatever the wretchedness, whatever the sadness is inside your heart, you just poured in elegiac way. That's why he wrote such type of word here. And he said it evokes pity. And finally, whenever we read out any elegy, generally it is a way of catharsis, means purgation of our emotions. So it evokes pity. And satiric poetry laughs at folly, and iambic poetry tries to unmask villainy. He says satiric poetry is nothing but which laughs at a folly when any people used to commit any mistake. Generally, there is only way by which we can amend their folly mistakes. So that is the satire. So as we can see during the Restoration era in the work of Pope, Dryden, Jonathan Swift, these all were the great satirists, and they tried. William Congreve was also there, and they tried their level best, by putting satire on the mere and petty follies of those people who were committing the very petty and folly mistakes. So satire is a way nothing but to improve their petty follies. So according to him, satire poetry laughs at folly, and iambic poetry tries to unmask villainy. And iambic poetry nothing but tries to unmask villainy. Unmask villainy means nothing but, suppose is there any kind of ill feelings are there inside any character. So through the iambic poetry, we can unmask whatever the whatever the inner and outer semblance is there of that particular character, and with the help of this iambic poetry, we can expose his villainy, whatever is inside is there of that particular character. So he lays undue stress on the moral aspects of comedy. Now he talks about comedy. So what is comedy? He said comedy is an imitation of the common errors of our life presented in a very ridiculous manner. He said comedy is nothing but it's a common imitation of our errors which we daily used to commit in our daily life in a very ridiculous manner. So comedy, he talks about, is nothing but what a imitation of common errors of our life presented in a ridiculous manner. It helps man keeping away from such errors. And finally, he also said, when with the help of comedy is focused on our errors which we daily used to commit, and it ridiculed our mistakes in a very ridiculous manners, and why which is also try to improvise or errors. And then tragedy, he said tragedy is replete with sweet violence. He talks about tragedy is nothing but it's replete with sweet violence. This particular word we have to focus. In exam it can also be asked for which type of poetry poet has talked about it's a sweet violence. So many options will be there. We have to click there. Tragedy. And it makes us remain grounded when we realize that life is full of uncertainties, and the tragedy is totally filled with sweet violence, and it always relies us and keeps us on a ground whenever we realize that life is full of uncertainties. Then he talks about the lyric which gives moral precepts and soars to the heaven in singing the praise of God. And he has, said a very good words for lyric. Lyric, it gives us a moral precepts, moral vision, by which we soar to the heaven in singing the song in praise of God, and can never be displeasing. So lyric is that genre of poetry in which we offer the songs to God, and this type of form of poetry cannot be displeasing, and nor can the epic or heroic poetry be disliked, because it inculcates virtue to the highest degree by portraying heroic and moral goodness in the most effective manner. And finally, he gives so much importance to the epic or heroic poetry, in which the poet says inculcate the virtues in a very highest degree by portraying heroic and moral goodness in most effective manners. If we are studying epic or a heroic poetry, there we will find out the direct examples of a strong character. Through that character, we also will be influenced by his behavior, by his etiquettes, and by his moral values. Those things which also we will try to inculcate in our own characters in a very effective manner. So Sidney asserts that the heroic is not only a kind but the best and the most accomplished kind of poetry. So dear friends, the question can be framed here: for which kind of poetry Sidney said that this is the best and the most accomplished kind of poetry? Then there we have to give response there. It's a heroic or a epic poetry. Although he talked about so many kinds of poetry, but he gave only on 3 genres of poetry. The one was sweet violin, that was tragedy. Another one was lyric, which was very nearer to the God, in which we offer the songs in praise of God. And the last one, that was heroic or epic poetry. This is the most accomplished kind of poetry. And now another unit in which the 4 objections to the poetry which were given by Stephen Gosson. So after the general discussion on poetry, Sidney now argues against specific critique of poetry. So here we will talk about the 4 objections to the poetry. The first: poetry is useless, a waste of time. It was said that poetry is nothing but a useless and all a wastage of time. And second, poetry is deceptive and mother of all lies. And some places Plato said that poetry is very deceptive and mother of lies. So if someone said, who said that poetry is the mother of lies, then we must have an answer. It was said by Plato. And third, poetry is immoral, the nurse of abuse. So Stephen Gosson, he said that poetry is totally immoral and it's a nurse of abuse. A nurse of abuse means it nurses the abuses. The fourth and last, Plato would have none of it, and so vanished the poet from his Republic. And whenever we will read out Republic in chapter number 10, in which the Plato tried to vanish all kinds of poets. But dear friends, here I would like to tell you, although such words were mentioned in Republic, but the intention of Plato was not there, as it was interpreted by the different critics. If it was there, then he has given the Ion term. Ion term is nothing but, it says, the best accomplished and professional writer. He regards means Plato regards only those poets and authors and writers who are accomplished and professional. So it means, in simple words, we can say Plato is talking about only those poets who were not good at composing poetry, who were not following all those patterns, all those rules which are needed to complete a poetry, to produce important and magnus opus work. That's why Plato condemned to those poets, but not all poets. So 4 chief objections was there, we have seen. What were the 4 objections? First, poetry is useless, waste of time. Second, poetry is deceptive, mother of all lies. Poetry is immoral and the nurse of abuse. And fourth, Plato would have none of it, and so banished poets from his Republic. These all things we have to keep remember. So let's understand. Here he would like to prove the superiority. He also once again would like to prove the superiority of poetry over the different historian, geometrician, astronomer. So let's understand what is there. As I have already mentioned about the ion, so we will also discuss there. The astronomer and the geometrician, the historian, and all others all makes false statement. He said directly that if we talk about astronomer, if we talk about geometrician and historian, all kinds of these people makes false statements. But while a poet is not a liar, the immortality of poetry is actually its abuse. That's why poetry is not immoral. That's why poet is not a liar. And if we talk about the immortality of the poetry, it's actually abuse, because due to the immortality of the poetry, because poetry will not be finished, poetry will never die. That's why the people feel jealous, and this immortality of poetry proves as an abuse. So what he present is not fact, but the fiction embodying truth of an ideal kind. If rightly used, poetry does most good in answer to the epitomizing effects. He said in simple words, if we are using poetry in a very good way, it will tell you the embodying truth of an ideal kind. And Sidney says that it is a stock abuse against all learning. He said that it's a stock of abuse against all learnings, and poetry alone has the ability to rouse man to virtuous action. He said that poetry has the only capacity to rouse a man to the virtuous action. So, and in the last underlined paragraph, according to Sidney, the Plato was not against poetry in general, but he leveled his charge against a particular kind of poetry, and which would create a harmful effect on human minds and society in general. As I've earlier told you, that Plato was not against the poetry in general, and he has only charged against a particular kind of poetry. As I have earlier told you, he was not against the poetry and poets, because he has given the term ion. It means the professional and well accomplished writer. So those who are not following the full given pattern or rules, or we can say prosody, they were not a good writers, they were not a good poets. That's why Plato has said, and he has not given any kind of term like poetry. He has not mentioned any kind of poetry term in his work Republic. In his view, whomsoever, whether they are writer, the scientist, or other kinds of astronomer or politician, anyone who produced a good work, they are called ion. So he said here in simple words, Plato had warned against the abuse of poetry. He has warned the people against the abuse of poetry, because we have to compose a poetry in a very effective manner that should give the impact on reader's mind. We should never abuse. The abuse here means misuse of the poetry. As he with all the evidence described the poet is ion. As I have already told you what it was, ion. So he said, a light and a winged and holy things. Poetry is nothing but a light and a winged and a holy thing. So Plato vanishes the abuse, not the things, not vanishing it, but giving the honor unto it shall be patron and not our adversity. So finally he said, Plato vanishing the abuses, but not the things and not the poets. And he was giving finally to all the things honor. So only this much for today's. I hope whatever I have explained, you will get some informative information which can be useful for your exams. If you like my video, kindly give me your feedback, give me a kind of a positive reinforcement, so that I can be inspired and I can bring such type of more videos which can be useful for your upcoming exams. So thank you.